The only obligation which I have the right to assume is to do at any time what I think is right. Have you ever disobeyed a rule, either of parents or an actual law? Ever thought that a rule wasn't right and wished to do something about it and fight it? There is a professional way of doing this, a way without making rash decisions or causing violence. This way is called civil disobedience. Civil Disobedience is a book written by Henry David Thoreau in 1849. It outlines what it means to professionally disobey a rule that you don't see right and disagree with. It says that civil disobedience is every man's duty to do whenever the government is unjustly treating citizens. This civil disobedience has been used throughout history. Gandhi used it with his efforts in the Indian independence movement, and it worked for him very well. It was also used by orator Martin Luther King Jr. in his movement to free African Americans from racial discrimination. As I said, civil disobedience, before becoming the idea and turned into actions by the famous activists, it was a book. Written by Henry David Thoreau, the famous author and poet, it was based on the idea that the government is flawed and we should always want better for ourselves from our government. This book first began as an essay that he took around giving speeches and firing people up for change. It was all inspired by the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 and the Mexican-American War. Thoreau, a longtime abolitionist, was disgusted with the act and would have brought on a huge increase in slavery. He also saw no point in America going to war with Mexico. When his neighbor, a tax collector, came to his door to collect, he refused, saying he would rather go to jail than pay taxes and support an unjust war. His book was so powerful it spread and influenced many others. Years later, the book found its way into Gandhi's hand, and he was thoroughly impressed with the writings and influenced his actions and ideas with the way he led India. Gandhi was a huge and vital activist for the Indian independence movement, disagreeing with the way the British and their viceroys were handling the Indian government. Gandhi started to preach to his people about nonviolent civil disobedience. He successfully started to unite the Indian citizens to start working together using their wide array of nonviolent weapons, including fasting, public protests, and boycotting British goods. Gandhi also inspired countless citizens to start spinning khandi, or homespun clothes, so they wouldn't have to rely or buy from anyone else. Gandhi was later caught and spent years in prison under charges of sedition, but his time spent wasn't wasted. In the year 1947, he led his people to achieve Indian independence from Britain. His nonviolent civil disobedience sparked others across the globe. One person who it sparked was civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. MLK read Thoreau's book at a young age when he was a student. The book made a lasting impression on him, and he believed the best way to fight against racial discrimination was with Thoreau's ideas of civil disobedience. MLK led people to start the Montgomery bus boycott in memory of Rosa Parks' actions. He also started a group to combat racial discrimination called Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC. This group led more nonviolence movements in Alabama, which received much public attention and even TV reports on their brutal treatment from the local police. Most importantly, he was a huge contributor to the March on Washington in 1963, where he delivered his I Have a Dream speech, forever making a mark on history. For all of his nonviolent efforts against racial segregation, in 1964 he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Civil disobedience has played an important role in the changing of our rules, government, and way of thinking. It has showed that violence, in fact, isn't always the only answer. Throughout the world, Henry David Thoreau's essay, Civil Disobedience, has impacted us all the way to India with a fight for freedom and liberty, and all the way back to the United States with a fight on racial discrimination and human rights. Under a government which imprisons any unjustly, a true place for a just man is also a prison.